Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. Well, I've got an exciting new build video to share with you guys today. This is a early sample copy that we've got from Classy Hobby. The actual kit is supposed to be out in about 3 or 4 weeks. This is the M5A1 Stuart light tank in 1/16 scale. So big kit, actually small in real life, but a big kit because it's in 16 scale. So if you guys remember, we did the Panzer I recently from Takom, how much bigger that was than like the standard one. So very excited to see some American armor being represented in the 16 scale, and hopefully this is a trend going forward that we see more and more of it getting done. The kit, it looks like, I just kind of briefly looked inside, looks like there's a decent amount of parts in there, so there should be some extreme detail. Very excited to tear into this. So, let's get started. Okay, before we start in the assembly, what I thought I'd do is show you the hull of the vehicle. And as you can see right here, it is a massive piece. Lots of detail. They've molded this all as just one big giant piece, including the back on here. And it's made of a fairly thick plastic too, which you're going to want in something like this because it's obviously going to be kind of heavy with all the plastic parts that we're going to be putting on. And just let you see some of the detail on here. So that's all molded. And then here's our upper hull, and it is partially molded together right here, but this will give you a general size of what we're going to be working with right here. So quite the massive little tank, because this is a small tank in real life, and in 35th scale it's very small, but I think it's going to look really good in 16 scale. So let's start working on the suspension. Okay, now we're going to start working on the suspension pieces, and as you can see here, I have 2 of them already built up for the left side of the vehicle, and this is all of the parts, or most of all the parts, that go into making. Now, I just cut all these parts off the sprue. But to kind of give you a general idea, I'm going to show you the instructions, because a lot of it requires like multiple hands to get it going on it. And the camera being in the way, I'm going to try my best to show you a little bit of how it's done. But you can see there are lots of individual parts that make up these suspension pieces. And keep in mind too, they want the suspension to work on this kit. Now, when I built it, because I don't want it to work at all because I think it's going to be way too fragile down the road, I glued all of these pieces into place, so we have a static piece. One thing you want to keep in mind too when you're building it, once you get it glued in the right position, make sure that it is perfectly, the wheels and these pieces are all vertical and horizontal to each other so that you don't have suspension that's out of whack. What I ended up doing was I took it and attached it to the side here and made sure that each one of them was going to, actually this goes on the other side, but making sure that it all lined up on there because you don't want to have one road wheel way off the ground on it. So let me do this now. I'm going to try to put this together and show you the best I can. The thing is you got to reverse the whole operation, and the instructions are a little bit vague because it says you do the very first part the same, and I don't understand how that would work. If you do the first part the same, the pieces are going to be on the wrong side. But let me figure this out, and then I'm going to show you how to do the other side. Okay, I think I've figured out the one little part that needs to be flipped over. So this part's going to be the same. And like I said, I'm going to glue all these pieces into place because I don't care if this works. So these are those little arms. There's 8 of these little arms, and there's a front and back to each one of them that you need to stack up. So you need to get them in the right order. There's a left and, or see how they got the pins and on both sides. So we need to line up all of these pieces on both sides, and then we can attach. And I'm putting a little extra bit of glue on there, and we're going to let these dry because we really want to make sure there's good contact on these. I'm going to use the tweezers on this since the camera's kind of in the way. And there's a lower and a higher part, so you want to make sure that the thing has still flexibility. And I'll show you what I mean by that. If you look on the camera right here, you'll notice that there is a bigger space here. That bigger space corresponds with going down there, and that would, so it would have room to move on it. So we'll go ahead and glue these into place on both sides. making sure not to let them fully dry before we do anything else, because we don't want them to dry in any type of wrong position. And then we can slide the wheels into place here, just like this. Maybe. There we go. And then we slide the other side in. We need to put those braces on this side as well. Stack all this up and get this glued together. And then once we get that glued together, we can put the overhead arm on and the springs and the other pieces, and we'll show you how those go on as soon as this dries for a bit. One other thing, almost forgot, we have to put these braces in the middle here. So we put a little bit of glue on the one side and slide it into the area it needs to go and put both of those on. I've got these done too, so I'm going to definitely do this part off camera. We're going to get this other one glued in and then get these lined up into shape. And we want to hurry up because we don't want these to dry too much. We want to be able to make sure we can get them to go completely vertical to it. Okay, now I can show you this part, and this may not make much sense why I did it this way, but it is so hard to try to get this going any other way. I found that it's easier just to take these and open them up and attach this piece into it one at a time. Seal this back off right there and then do this, because there are 4 little pins. You got to get all 4 of them lined up in there to make it go across. And I tried doing it the other way where we put it in as we went along, and it just was so fragile. I kept messing it up. So while the glue is still wet, we still have the opportunity, as you can see right here, to get each one of them to line up. And next, we have to glue the 2 pins into place here. And these 2 pins, you can see that there's a tall one and a short one. The tall one has to go on the inside of the vehicle so it can actually touch. Then we can go ahead and glue the springs directly into that, making sure that that nub is sticking through the back there towards the side of the tank. We can put the rest of the parts on. Now, there is no part that calls out for this piece to go in there, but it definitely needs to go inside there. What I was trying to relate to you guys too is this part shows up in the instructions as already being on, but they don't call it out when it goes in. But one thing I'll point out to you is when you put it in, you want to leave it in, but don't glue it, because you want to make sure that this square portion is exactly straight, so it'll plug into the square portion actually right here on this one here. So you can see we put the front tab and this piece on. The only other thing we need to do is put the little top spring, which we need to sand. And you do need to cut this top bolt on each side off so we can put this piece into place. But we'll do all that in a minute. And I'm going to go ahead and finish up both of these now, and then I'll show you what the tracks look like. Okay, now we're going to show you the fun part. And that is the tracks that go on this vehicle here. So we've got multiple parts together. We have the bottom tread piece, which you can see I've got 2 of them right here. We've got the bars that hook everything together, which will get dropped right into place like that. And I've gone ahead and cut 3 out because this is going to be the easiest way to put this together. So we drop the 3 bars into place. Now remember, you got to cut all these out and clean them as you go. And then we've got our pad, which you want to keep just the tiniest amount of glue just in the middle. Don't want it to get anywhere on the bars. You'll drop those into place just like that. And then finally, you'll cut off 2 guide teeth and put a guide tooth on each side of it right there. And so the biggest, most time-consuming part of the whole thing is obviously cutting and cleaning all the parts. But what I'll show you now is this is what a set looks like once it's completely assembled. So we have fully workable tracks. There is a decent amount of work inside there, but it is kind of cool. In the future, personally, this is really cool, and I'm glad they include this in there. I also wish they would include a set of rubber bands. American tanks are, especially this one, is live track, meaning that there's no sag in this track. So the live track is always, got a spring to it. It's always tight. So rubber bands, if they are molded properly, can look just as good as this, especially if we don't need a sag at all. But this is a cool feature right here. Like I said, I just wish they would have both in there to give you the option. But that is how the tracks go together. And I actually had a friend help me out with these because I've been making so many videos of different things, and he volunteered to put these together. And this probably took him about I'd say about 4 hours to put these together just the way it is. And that's cutting and cleaning and everything on it there. But I really appreciate Enrique. He's a customer and friend of mine that very, very helpful to help me put some of these parts together like this. Okay, I'll show you where we're at right now. I've gone ahead and attached the 3 guide rollers, or return rollers, up on top there. And in the instructions, I told you those little pins were not called out. They actually show it in there, but in the next set of instructions, when you attach the bogies, they show them to attach inside there. So they are listed in there. I just happened to not jump ahead on it. So I'll just show you how this will basically go together. We've got our A and B unit. So this will click right into place here. We'll glue this in a bit. Kind of dry fitting all this to show you how it goes on. The other side goes in here. I've gone ahead and assembled up the rear idler, which was very, very easy. Not too many parts on it. That'll get glued right into place like this. And then we have the drive sprocket, which we're going to leave the drive sprocket on. I think it's going to make it getting the tracks on and off much easier since we built them all together as one piece. So you can see that easily. And I say easily, there was a lot of parts inside these two right here, but nothing hard. It's just time consuming. So we've got one whole side built, and we've got all the parts to build the other side. So we'll assemble all those together now, and then we'll start moving on to the rest of the hull. With all of the running gear built, we can now start working on the hull, like I was telling you earlier. And first of all, we're going to fit these into place here. These are the little doors for the back of the engine compartment. And they will all fit together just like that. So we'll go ahead and glue those up in a minute. But what we can also do is there are a bunch of form pieces that are designed to slide inside here. Possibly because there's an interior coming down the road. You definitely want to include these in here because if nothing else, they'll square out the entire body of the vehicle. So we'll glue those into place. There is also one that goes right back here. And I've also gone ahead and built up some of the exhaust features that'll get glued into place just like this. And then there's things like the tow hook. And then this will cover up all of this over in here too. Now, with those doors, you can leave these doors open, and there's actually 2 fan assemblies that you can build up inside here, which we can show you right here in this picture, and you can drop both A and B fan in there. I'll probably build up one for just to show it, but I don't plan on opening this up. If anything, if it was going to be put in a diorama, I'd certainly want it shut all the way. So with that right there, we'll go ahead. Also going to leave the photo etch right off these for now. We're going to glue that on last. That way we don't worry about knocking it off. So I'm going to get all of these pieces built up and glued into place. Plus there's also a hatch door on each one of those that we'll go ahead and glue that on as well. Okay, now we can build up the radiators that you will be able to see through the photo etch screens that they include with this to go inside. So they're not too difficult to put together, but I thought I'd just kind of show you some of that. And one thing I should point out to you too, this is the type of plastic that, like this little mark right here, this has all been sanded right here, but it still leaves the lighter color of plastic on there. So rest assured, there's sometimes looks like there's some areas that are not being sanded, but they are. They're just, when they get painted over, it'll be as smooth as anything, just the way it looks, bare plastic. It does look a little bit rough, but it has been sanded. So we just need to build up a couple of these. We'll mount them together with these brackets, and then we'll be able to place them inside the vehicle. And that's what the radiators look like in place. Next, we will go ahead and we can glue the upper part of the hull, which fits extremely well. Very tight, just drops right into place, just the way you'd expect it. And with that, we can also go ahead and glue together the front plate, which is a matter of putting those two together. And there's also the machine gun, which we've already built up just a couple parts. And we'll go ahead and glue that in. You can see that is all slide molded right there. So we can then go ahead and glue that into place. So I will take care of that right now, and then I'll come back and show you how we start to put the rest of the accessories on. And we can also go ahead and apply the front fenders. Now I'm going to be putting the smaller front fenders on. that I think is a little bit more prototypical of an American tank, and we're not going to be putting the side fenders on as well. My impression of a Stuart, never really I think of those side fenders on it. Usually it seems to be more British tanks that have the side fenders, even like on the Shermans. So I'm going to be putting the smaller ones on without the sides. Okay, we're at the point now where I've just installed the hatch right here that has the radiators, and they line up, or the radiator openings, as you can see right here, and they line up really well. The only tough part is going to be this photo etch. The photo etch is very, very, very thin photo etch, and probably realistic to scale. There are a couple little flaps right here that we can get going on it. And hopefully we're going to be able to super glue that into place. It fits perfectly. So as you can see right there, it's just going to be a matter of getting it glued on properly. This one was the same way. Fit is very, very tight. Perfect fit. It's so thin that you just don't want to, you just want to be very careful that you don't warp it. I did slightly tweak it right here, but it dried and it's mostly going to get covered up. It looks actually kind of like just damage, like something's been dropped on it. But this one I think will be a little bit easier because it's got some flaps, something to actually glue it onto. So we're going to go ahead and glue that into place. Then we'll also start putting on all of the caps, like the radiator caps, fuel tank caps, things like that on it. Okay, guys, so we jumped a little bit ahead here and put quite a few of the accessory parts on, like the light guards, the lights, the hatches, things like that, including this stowage bin on the back, and all of the photo etch inside there, or on the top there. Now what I'm going to do is, and also you may also notice I painted the entire thing in olive green, and that was just because I was using that to kind of determine where I needed to do some more sanding and some more work on stuff. And the plastic, remember I was telling you earlier, is such a type that if you have little marks in it, you can't really tell if it's a flaw or if it's smooth or not. So that's really helping out a lot getting the stuff done. Now what I'm going to do is, one of the last things we're going to put on is the hedgerow cutter, which I am just fitting into place right here, and I'm sharpening up the blades a little bit too. From what I understood, that these were actually sharpened quite a bit to help go through the hedgerows, but I'm not going to go crazy with it, but just sand it down a little bit, as you can see we're doing here. So we're going to glue this into place, and it appears that it's going to fit pretty well. And you can see how everything is coming along there really nicely. Now we can start working on the turret, and the thing bouncing around inside there is the jack and some of the other parts I put in there. I have a tendency to lose some parts, so lately what I've been doing is when I build something, I actually put it inside the turret. That way I know where it is later on. So what I'll do next is I'm going to finish up sanding this. We'll put this on, and then we'll start working on the gun and the turret. Okay, you watch me put most of the accessories on there now. There are just a couple more pieces that we need to attach in here. It is a pretty elaborate gun too. There's lots and lots of parts on it. And probably, I'm thinking with the hatches open, you probably could see quite a bit of the gun inside too. So we'll let this dry and we'll actually move on to the turret now. And we went ahead and added the 50 cal as well. There, almost forgot about that. Now we can mount it into here. Let's see how this is going to fit in here and make sure it's going to fit properly. Yeah, the 50 cal and the scope both go through there. And then this piece, which we'll put a little glue on in a minute, but let's make sure it fits properly first. Yep, clicks right in there. And everything looks like it's going to line up. Okay, good. So we'll go ahead and glue that, and then this will get glued right into place right up in front here. So I will go ahead and put the glue on that, and we'll come back to show you what it looks like once it's in. Okay, now we're going to mount the machine gun on the outside edge of the turret here. And it's got a definite little spot where it goes. And then once that gets mounted into place, we can go ahead and mount this little shield there. Now, I am not quite sure what the heck this is actually for on the side of this tank. I've tried looking it up and couldn't really find out what they were saying. It's clearly hollowed out, as you can see right here. It mounts the machine gun. I mean, is it strictly just for the mount to the machine gun? But you'd figure there's got to be something else they could have done about that, rather than making this, unless it's stowage. So if anyone knows what this is for, leave a comment down below, because I'd be truly interested in knowing. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this into place right here. And then we can start working on the upper part of the turret. As you can see here, we've got all the little hatches, all the other little pieces like that, little vision ports. Nothing super spectacularly hard to put together. Everything is fitting really, really well on this kit. There have been some times where there's a lot of parts, but really surprised and really impressed that everything goes together that well. So I'm going to get this glued on, and we'll get some of the last little parts glued on to the top of the turret, and then we'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, I'm not going to show the entire upper part of the hull getting assembled, or a turret getting assembled, just because I want to keep it as, not 3-hour long video. But I wanted to show you some of the detail parts, like the little extra hinges that they have in here, the grab handles. All of that stuff is all molded very, very nicely, and all the little covers. The only problem I am having right now is the guards for the periscopes. Now, they are made up of quite a few parts, and I have broken 2 of them already, so I can't put them on the way, way they're supposed to, because they're made of so many tiny little parts. So the only thing I can think of is there's quite a few pictures I've seen of the real ones that don't have the periscope guards on there. So we might have to build it as is right now and then look for an alternative later on. But yeah, very, very fragile, really tiny little pieces. And that little light guard that, or the little, periscope guard is made up of like 4 pieces, and it's really, really fiddly. So like I said, I snapped 2 of them immediately, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about the periscope guard. The covers are definitely in there, and those are easy to put on, but we'll see what we'll do. So I'm going to get all this put together, and then we'll show you what it looks like once it's all done. And here we are, guys. Here is what principal construction looks like on this kit. As you can see, we've just put the tracks into place temporarily with the drive sprockets. These will fall right off very easily. And I've also sprayed the entire model with black. Missed a few little areas right here, but that's just going to be for our shadow coat, so we don't really have to be perfect with the black coat. We are going to do the white highlight coat in a little bit here. But what I thought I'd do is just give you a quick little turnaround of the entire thing, show you how nice the kit looks. Overall, the fit was good, very good actually. There was a lot of parts in some areas, but that's to be expected on something like this. And I was like I said, very, very impressed with the fit of the kit. So everything's coming along great. I did screw up earlier and glue the whatever this thing is back here, the electric deflector for the exhaust. I glued it in upside down, noticed it. You might have noticed it in the other scene, but I flipped it around and got it all fixed on it there. We also put some metal wire in for our antenna, since we have a big enough antenna on here. We've also left off all of the tools, which I've got one of the tools right here. The axe, I started painting all of those. and we'll put those on in a bit. Plus, also, Classy Hobby was kind enough to send us out a set of their 50-gallon drums and jerry cans. So there's a possibility we can, in 16 scale too, load this up somehow. I don't know quite. I have to look at some more pictures. I know I've seen a picture with one of these 50-gallon drums up on top of the engine deck here. Might be kind of cool. So I started building some of those up and sanding them, and it'll probably add a nice little feature to that. So now let's go ahead and paint the vehicle. As we start the paint job, you can see we've done the black and white shadow and highlight coat. And now we're going to be using a couple of different paints from Mission Models. The first one we're going to be using in a light effect, as to not to cover up our black and white, is our Faded Olive Drab #1. After we put a couple of light coats of that on, we will go ahead and use Faded Olive Drab #3 and lightly blend it around. And finally, we'll add olive drab, just plain olive drab. And we won't go through over everything. And it's been slightly watered down a little bit more than it normally would be, but we're going to lightly go over it and kind of get a blending effect of the 3 different colors. Okay, now that the decals are on and the entire model has been clear coated with lacquer clear coat, we're going to go ahead and start doing the weathering. First thing we're going to do is we're going to use one of the original colors that we put on as like an oxidation, because now we have a little bit of a darker surface on it. So we're using olive drab faded #3. We're using it on our foam brush or foam sponge here, and blotting out most of it, and starting at the edges and kind of working out. We want to start putting some oxidation on, and it's going to look like little chips and scratches and rubs that haven't gone all the way through. And when it comes to a corner or an edge like this, we want to put a little bit heavier on, assuming that there would be more of that happening right there. And we can even put some on in the middle. And it looks a little bit dark, but it will dry. It'll dry fairly light. And keep doing all of that. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to let that dry, and we'll show you the next step. Okay, now that the oxidation light scratch section has started to dry, we can now use the same type of foam sponge, and using our chipping method with our chipping color, which I'll show you down in the corner right now, we can start lightly putting some chips and scratches. And we'll go over quite a bit of this side, actually the entire vehicle, doing the same chipping method. And also, we can take a real fine brush and put some center chips here that are a little bit, or scratches I should say, that are a little bit long, and just lightly you can draw your scratch in. And if you want some bigger chips up on top, you can use your brush to do this as well. So it's a mixture of going back and forth depending on how scratched you want that area. And we still have a lot of blending to do, so if you put on a little bit too much, try to wipe it off as best as possible, but there'll be a lot of blending technique that'll hide a lot of your mistakes as well. So, and you can see right off, just with just a few little brush strokes and a little sponge blotting, how we're starting to come together with a nice Nice little paint job right here. So, as you can imagine, this portion is going to take quite a bit of time. So we won't show all of this on camera, but you get the general idea what we're doing. So I am going to go ahead and do the entire tank. And because it's a big tank, this is probably going to take about an hour or two of going back and forth, just lightly and building up coats. Now, the other thing I'm also going to do too is we're also going to take a little bit of German gray, and I'll just show you a touch of this right here. On the same type of thing with a foam brush, we also want to add a few little spots of the gray on it as well too. Let's see if we can come at it like this. And that'll soften some of the darkness of the other rust color that or the oxidized color. Not really like a bright rust, it's a lighter color. Okay, for the next part, we're going to start to do some more of the washes and streaking on it there. And we've let the chips and all that stuff dry. So now we're putting a little coat of enamel thinner down, and that just helps the paint flow a little easier across there. And I'm just going to show you a small little area of what we're going to do, and then go over the whole tank. So we're just going to use a little bit at first, just a little streaking grime. Lightly going on here. Okay, one quick thing. While I was weathering and spending all that time detailing it up, I noticed that I had put these two wheels on backwards. Now, obviously, I've reversed that right now, but I can't believe all that time I didn't notice it. But so the paint's drying on that, so we're going to weather those up. But I literally put them on inside out, so I had to go in there and cut them. And that's how the Tamiya real fine cutters work real well. Cut it on the front and back, and just re-glue it back into place. So no problem, but glad we noticed it before we finished it up. And now we're going to apply some dust deposits in areas that we want some lighter dirt to accumulate. And dust deposits are basically like a wash with a pigment inside of it. And I happen to be using just regular light dust deposit, it's called. So we'll put a little bit here and there, as if dirt's building up on certain areas. And we'll go back and weather it in later on. But see, like this. And it goes on kind of thick, but it'll dry completely differently. It'll dry a lot lighter, and we can clean off any of the excess that we don't want on there as well. And here we are, guys. Here is our completed model. And as we do the little 360 around the entire thing, you'll see we've added on the tools into place, as well as all of the lenses for the headlights and for the little searchlight up on top there. But pretty happy with the way it came out. We really wanted to make it look like it was a beat up frontline vehicle that's seen a lot of fighting in its day, and it's a little battle worn right now. But really liked the kit. There was a lot of parts in some areas, like the tracks and things like that, but as you can see, the kit looks really nice once it's built up. So I would definitely recommend this, especially with 16 scale getting more and more popular right now. This is a great kit because it's not too large. It's just a little bit larger than the Panzer I, and you have a nice piece of American armor to go with your collection. So I want to thank you guys as always for watching, and please stay tuned because we have many more videos coming.